Steve Sosnick here with today's Interactive Brokers Midday Market Update for Tuesday, October 20th, 2020. We're looking at an up morning. Not quite clear to me why. I guess it's continued hopes for stimulus, despite the fact that yesterday we declined so sharply because those hopes seemed dashed. Perhaps it's a bit of an oversold bounce because buy the dips remains a very workable strategy for many. And people tend to do strategies until they stop working, and this is one that's worked. But you have to wonder why a little bit, because I don't see this working out well. Let's say that they keep to this deadline of today for getting some stimulus between Speaker Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin. And let's say that Secretary Mnuchin is able to operate without any interference from the president, and the president will accept whatever deal is negotiated. Then it still has to go to the Senate, and it's not clear that there's any likelihood of this thing passing the Senate. Ted Cruz was on the wire earlier saying he saw very little likelihood. I find it hard to believe that this is going to get done in the way that the market hopes. But hope is a very strong motivator, and certainly we all want this thing to happen. I shouldn't say we all, but those of us in the market want this to happen because we saw how much money flowed into the equity markets as a result of it. And so that would be considered very market friendly. And also it would be good for the economy overall because there's a lot of people who are really hurting. And I think if you can get people spending, not that helps the economy overall. But to tell you the type of mood that the market's in, the most significant piece of news that I saw today was that the Justice Department is going to be investigating their opening proceedings against Google. And of course, as we write this, Google's up 1% because as people start to talk about it, well, it won't happen for another by the time it gets done, it won't be for another 5 to 7 years. I remember the situation that happened with Microsoft when Microsoft was being investigated for antitrust. It's a big distraction. And I think that's partially why Google has been an underperformer among the tech mega caps this year. It's done very well. It's up double digits, but not to the same degree that many of its other peers are. And there's a lot to chew on here, and I'm hardly the legal expert to chew on such a thing. But bottom line is it's not good news. And so whatever management, however you want to put it, a management distraction, it's going to force them to change their operating approach. I don't know. And the problem for Google is this has been signed off on by several Republican state attorneys general. And it's not clear to me that a change in administration will change the regulatory picture, because we know that there are many in the Democratic Party who are seeking to I'm going to say rein in, maybe the wrong word, but investigate many of the large tech companies, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, etc. And so I don't see this thing going away. It may not be resolved anytime soon, but it's going to be something they have to focus on, and it's going to be something they have to deal with for some time. And I think they're going to have to be very, very careful in terms of how they step in a regulatory manner. And anytime you're worried more about regulation than you are about your business, well, in this case, they're intertwined so innately, then you're going to run into some problems. So I don't see it as good news, but markets telling me that's not the case. And again, going back to, so we've got the quote unquote good news in Google that they're getting investigated. We've got the good news, quote unquote, about the stimulus package, which, by the way, think about it. Someone put it to me this way, and I can't really disagree. They see any stimulus news as being a buy the rumor, sell the news type of event. Why? Because I think the market would there's a good chance the market acts euphorically if there's a headline that says Pelosi and Mnuchin reach a deal. And then the market sort of gets the cold realization when it comes out that the Senate is not going to move on such a thing anytime soon. That becomes the sell the news because the market potentially got its hopes up. It's actually a pretty reasonable scenario. It was brought to me by a friend, and I kind of say, you know what? It makes sense. So let's see. Right now, I would say the market was unnecessarily gloomy yesterday. On the other hand, it was more or less the mirror image of last Monday, where it was unnecessarily happy. We don't really understand. I don't really understand why it was up so much last Monday, nor do I understand why it was down so much yesterday. Um, I think expiration week dynamics had something to do with it, but we will see where this all shakes out. There's a lot going on. Oh, and by the way, we're 2 weeks away from the election, so you got that to think about, and you have the beginnings of what I would call the real earnings season. The big tech companies starting to come out with Netflix tonight and Tesla tomorrow. Tesla down a little bit ahead of earnings. Netflix more or less unchanged ahead of earnings. I pointed out, and I urge you to read those pieces, how there have been buyers of upside calls ahead of earnings in both those companies, which is a rather unusual setup. But these are rather unusual companies. On that happy note, have a good one, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.